In this midterm election year, the focus is mostly on which party will win the majority if the seats in the House and the Senate, of the seats of the House in the Senate. But there is something else you must pay attention to. 36 states will select a governor this election cycle. Alabama is one of those states. And the race is a rematch between the current senator, Republican Tommy Tuberville, and the former senator, Democrat Doug Jones. The two faced off in 2020 for the state Senate seat. And Tuberville won by a lot, a 20-point margin. So let's bring in Alabama's Democratic candidate for governor, Doug Jones. Doug, always good to have you here. You served in the Senate for 3 years before your 2020 race against Tuberville, who was a hero to the state because of his sports history. What is different now? Why do you think you've got a shot?
Well, first of all, he damn sure wasn't a hero to most of the people in the state since he coached at Auburn instead of the University of Alabama. So let's just kind of be clear about that. You know, look, Stephanie, thanks for having me. And this race is so different. One, a U.S. Senate race in a state like Alabama is so different. I mean, the U.S. Senate is a Washington, D.C. beltway kind of race. Here, this is more local. This is your neighbors. These are people that you are talking to on an everyday basis. And the governor's race is a lot different. And the main difference is he has now got a political record that he's got to answer to and not just a sports record. And it's not a record of which that makes much sense for Alabama. He is really one of the 90-pound weaklings in the Senate when it comes to Donald Trump, deferring to him consistently, even on all of the tariffs and inflation and everything else that you've heard about. None of his proposals make any sense because they are just culture war proposals and not based in reality. I've got a record. We've got a plan. We're talking to people every day. And that's going to make the difference in this race, how we're getting out talking to the people of Alabama. And he's riding around talking to Chat GPT and making speeches only at the chambers of commerce.
The last time Alabama, though, elected a Democratic governor, that was back in 1999. Bill Clinton was the president. Our nation has done almost a 180 politically since then. What is your message to voters now? People who have not been in the Democrats' camp for 30 years, people who are watching TV and hearing that Democrats are super far left, democratic socialists, and how those democratic socialists are even being defined on the political ads in your home state doesn't even have a connection to who they really are.
Yeah, you know, look, people in Alabama know me. That's the advantage I've got. They know I'm not a socialist. They know I'm not a communist. It is just silly. I mean, when I was in the United States Senate, I got awards from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce for being bipartisan and protecting the free enterprise system. People remember that. They didn't agree with every vote that I took, but they know me. They know what I've done over the years as U.S. attorney and as U.S. senator. But they also see and hear the just kind of crazy things that Donald Trump and Tommy Tuberville, who is enabling him, are saying. Your last segment was perfect, talking about tariffs, talking about inflation. Donald Trump's tariff policies are killing Alabama right now. They're hurting the cattle farmers. They're hurting our manufacturing. What does Tuberville say? He just writes it off, or he doesn't say anything about it because he is just taking a knee to Donald Trump. These people are hurting. And he doesn't understand tariffs. He doesn't understand anything that was just talked about, and blames inflation on 40 million illegal immigrants. Okay? 40 million, number one, is absurd. Illegal immigration is absurd. So people see that in Tommy Tuberville. And I'll tell you, Stephanie, and you and I have talked about this, this whole data center issue is a big deal in Alabama. It's a big deal across the country. Tuberville is all in. He has said, we're going to do them. It doesn't matter. The concerns of communities are bullcrap, in his words. And we're trying to be very reasonable and talking to people about the concerns that they have about the building of the data centers, whether it's power, whether it is their electricity, their water, and just their overall quality of life when these monstrosities go up in their neighborhoods. That's the difference in this race. And that's why we are talking to people. And the last thing, this is a change election. We have seen them before in the past. This is going to be a change election. People are fed up with both parties, and they're looking for candidates who are going to effectuate that change. And that's what we're offering right now.
Doug Jones, thank you for joining me this morning. And to Senator Tuberville and his team, they're welcome to join me for an interview any day next week.